So I'm down here in Chicago. It seems like the kingdom of Satan. And I don't get it. What has happened? They've increased the probability of negative occurrences. They've increased the probability of negative occurrences. So they have now bicycles and now scooters flying down with cars. And then they created these bike lanes. So they've tightened the street down. So there's less maneuverability left and right. Truly, less grace. So they've shrunk the street, making it more difficult on the motorist. So they can give more leadway to the bikes, to the scooters. And so I don't get it when you shrink the size of the streets, but people want bigger cars. And I'll go into it on the post, how the width of the cars have increased. Cars are wider than ever before and longer than ever before. But you shrink the street. So something has to give. And so I don't get it. And you have all this stuff that you keep on shrinking the street. So what does that lead to? Very bad situations for automobiles. So insurance companies. So slowing down the speed limit is a must. You can't go faster. You have to go slower. Because the probability of bad things, like I saw the 2 bicycles painted white for 2 people hit on the bicycle and killed. And yes, there's a beautiful view from over here. But I don't get it. Something has to give. It's not the way it used to be. Now you're making this into Tucson, Arizona, where I always rode my bike to and from campus, even when I had a car. The majority of the time, I just rode my bike. And why? Because it costs to park around campus. So, yeah, the U of A made a lot of money with parking garages. So, I just rode my bike back and forth. The only time I take it, there was a free lot by the rec center, and I only go later in the evening, so the lot was empty, more spaces. But that's the only time I drove is to the rec center sometimes. Other times I just took my bicycle. I couldn't afford to park on campus. So my car sat in the driveway. I only used my car to go to work at Lowe's Ventana Canyon because the CTA service in Tucson, it didn't run well. So, but that city was set up for bicycles a long time ago. It was designed in with the city. Bicycles are an afterthought here. So you're trying to integrate bicycles and scooters and other methods of transportation in with automobiles. So you get shitbags like this flying around. So it doesn't make sense. The city of Chicago has to become Nazis. And they should be repossessing and terminating licenses. Something's got to give. So I think they should start suspending licenses. 1 speeding ticket suspended for 3 months. First speeding ticket, 3 months. The next one, within 1 year, you get a second speeding ticket. After you got 3 months for the first suspended license, you get a second 6 months. In 1 year, you get a second. After a 3-month speeding, that means you're only driving for 9 months. You get a second within the year, 6 months suspension. So see how they like it. I don't think they'd be speeding too much. We need to start revoking licenses. Teaching people not to be animals. I mean, look, here's the bicycle. And then you have Diddy bikes. We didn't have that. So there weren't so many bicycles. Even in Tucson, you had to buy a bicycle. There wasn't these rental services. So the rental services now floods even more bikes into the market. The rental scooters. Before, you had to buy a scooter. You had to buy a bicycle. There were no rental options. Now you can rent bicycles and you can rent scooters. So that means the utilization is going to go way, way up. And then what did we get with shared cars? We have car services where you can rent. There are different car services where you can rent the car when you want the car. Not going into a rental place. And I don't know why they don't buy Hertz and that buy Zipcar and that. It would only make sense for them to buy Zipcar. But they plant cars at different places within the city where there's the most demand, and it sits there, and then you have a pass on your app, and you enter the car through your pass. They can use Zipcar for taxis. If you want to Uber in that, as long as you're approved, you can just pick up a Zipcar, use the Zipcar for the day, and do Uber or Lyft. And so you can get different Zipcars in different areas. So, but they have this. This adds more capacity. So you don't even have to own a car anymore. You can just join Zipcar and people use it to go to the grocery store and back. So you're adding all this capacity to the system. And this is capacity. This is on-demand services. When you want a bicycle, you can have a bicycle. When you want a scooter, you can have a scooter. When you want a car, you can have a car. So you have it when you want it. It's all on demand. And auto insurance has to go with it. They have to give just when you're driving. So there has to be an app with auto where you just press it and you have instant insurance. You pre-qualify and then you take the Zipcar and you're covered by State Farm while you're driving. And when you're not driving, you have no coverage. They only charge you while you're driving the vehicle. When the vehicle sits idle, there's nothing. And this is the thing with insurance. They're making a lot of money with a lot of cars that sit idle, that aren't even on the road. They're getting paid whether you drive or don't drive. They're getting paid all the time. I would come out with an insurance company that we only charge you when you're driving the car. When you're not driving, we don't charge you. So our rates are just based on demand. When you're using it, you pay. When you're not using it, you don't pay. So, only on demand. You have to pre-qualify in that, but if you're not using it, you're not paying. But people need liability for their car, meaning they need coverage, not the driving, the liability when they drive. They need the stuff when the car is sitting. So if it gets hit by another car or damaged in some other way in a flood or rain or some other type of damage, so they still need that capacity, but they don't need the driving liability. So they need that coverage no matter what, because they have to park the car and paint could spill on the car and there's all kinds of other things that could happen. So even when it's idle, they still have to cover the car for other unforeseen incidents, but not for driving. I have a lot of friends in New York that only take their car when they go out of town. They use taxi, Ubers, Lyft, RTA, CTA, or they walk. When I'm in New York, I walk 20,000, 30,000 or more steps a day. So does Jen. So walk, use the subway, walk, use the bus. You know, now you have Diddy bikes and scooters. So it transfers. So the auto insurance should transfer to your bicycle. The auto insurance should transfer to your scooter. The auto insurance should transfer to your motorcycle. So no matter what vehicle you're driving, you're insured. So it insures you on different forms of vehicles. And if you don't have the coverage, you go into the app and you check off the button and hit send, and it goes out and it will instantly approve you or tell you you're not approved, waiting underwriting, decision. And so it says you're not instantly approved and you need to wait for underwriting. Please do not ride at this time. And we will get back to you within 24 hours or something like that. But most people can be instantly approved. So look at this street. This right here, they put cones. I watched a lady drive her car between these two. Tires on both sides. And then she ended up getting stuck because these cones weren't here. You can't see this gray stuff. Whose fault is that? Whose fault is it? It's gray. It's hard to see. Isn't that on the city? Isn't that on the city? Shouldn't they make it easy to see? Easy to observe? Isn't it on them to design it where you can see it easily? So they're supposed to be designing. That's why we have stripes and they have these things. They let you know. So it's on them to notify you. Like if a street is a dead end, they need to notify you. Look at me, I'm going 25 miles an hour. That should be the legal speed limit in the city. You don't need to fly around the city. So I don't get it. If you want to go faster, go on Lakeshore Drive. Truly, when I want to go faster, I just head a little east, hit Lakeshore Drive. If I want to go faster, I go to the expressway, 90-94. They cut through the city. There's no crosstown. There's no east to west. But there's numerous north to south express lanes. So if you want to go faster, hop on the expressway. Hop on Lakeshore Drive. But this guy, he stays behind me. Now he's on my butt again. There's a second lane over here that's free. But what do? They terrorize you. See? Terrorize you. The white trash. The white trash. Garbage people. That's all you produce is garbage. More and more garbage. Why do you think violence has gone up? Because government has been successful? No. Because schools have been successful? No. Because churches have been successful? No. Because businesses have been successful? No. You've all failed and disgusting to God. That's why violence has gone up, not down. And it should be going down, because if they were doing the church the right thing, if the government from federal to state to county to local was doing the right thing, if businesses were doing the right thing, if parents were doing the right thing, wow, things would be going downward, not upward. So that means you're all going to be condemned. You're garbage. And your work shows you're garbage. Your lack of good work, you're garbage. So I drive around here with all the garbage. St. Luke's producing garbage people. Truly, garbage. They allowed, the gangbangers to go to church. And they're like, Father, please forgive me. I just raped 6 girls. And you're forgiven, my son. Don't worry, heaven awaits. And so the church constantly forgiving the scumbags. Indulgencies. They're indulging themselves. They go into the church so they can feel better. That's the only reason they go to the church. So they confess their sins, but they don't step away from them, and it's all about them feeling better. I went to church. I'm a better person. I confess my sins, and then I go out and repeat my sins. And the church indulges them, allows them, like it's going on against me. You're indulging them to repeat their sins, to terrorize me, day in, day out, allowing them to indulge, to threaten me, to terrorize me, to do all forms of wrong to me. You allow them to indulge their evil, their disgust, their filth, their disgrace. You allow them to indulge. And then you say, don't worry, God will forgive you. And I don't know, it says Jesus will judge you. It doesn't say he's going to forgive you. Read it clear. It says nothing about forgiveness. It has everything about judgment. He will judge the quick and the dead. In no way does it say he will forgive you. That means he's going to condemn you. See, it doesn't say he's going to forgive you. He's going to judge you. And that means he's going to condemn you. It's clear as day. It's all about condemning you. As you condemned him, now he will condemn you. An eye for an eye. You did it to him, now he's going to do it to you. And it's only righteous. God is fair and righteous and just. What you did to him, you shall receive. So I told you, he didn't spare you. He just gave you an opportunity to do the right thing. And if you don't do the right thing, you will be condemned. It's very clear. So it's not a question if, it's just when. And God is very patient. So always have and always will be. So you will come to him. He doesn't have to have you. He's got time on his side. And, oh yeah, that's right. Time is a construct of man. Even the particle physicist got it right. And he said, time is not a construct of God. God is infinite. There is no time. There is no essence of time. Man constructed time. That means time is not your friend. Time is your enemy. And the more wrong you do, the more time becomes even a greater enemy. So you just keep on burying yourself deeper and deeper. So make no mistake about what's coming for you. So you want hope, you better turn over a leaf as fast as possible. Because who knows if you have enough time to repent. So everybody thinks they got like forever and it's okay, and really? It doesn't say that in the Bible. Godspeed. The sooner, the better. It's just like a prosecutor. What does a prosecutor do? The faster you confess your sins, the more leniency a prosecutor may have. The longer you hide, the worse it'll be. The same thing with the IRS. If you made a mistake on your taxes and you go ahead and notify them and make the correction, they're very forgiving. But if you don't do it and they have to find you, they're not forgiving. So if you've made mistakes and you go and correct it yourself and let them know, and I found this out, I help people with tax situations. They were very gracious, like people with their systematic distributions. It's a 50% penalty if you miss. And this is at Vanguard. And I helped them through the situation, contacting, I told them, the IRS will be lenient if you go to them. They haven't notified you yet. Did they? Nope. You caught this. Yep. Okay. You didn't know, and the person didn't know. And they went to the IRS, and then they talked to me, and they forgave the penalty. 100%. They forgave the penalty altogether. Because good faith. They noticed a mistake. They went to them. Any place you go that you make the mistake and you go to them, they give you goodwill. They didn't even know the mistake happened. Like you overcharged somebody and then you correct it and send it to them. They're like, wow, I didn't know I got overcharged. Yes, we made an error and we caught the error and we're correcting it. Here's your money. And they're like, wow, you're awesome. So you didn't do it intentionally. Nope. It was an accident. And say some people did it intentionally and the IRS didn't catch it. They will still forgive you if you go to them and be more gracious than otherwise. If they catch you, they're going to hammer you. So even if you did it intentionally, and that's why God gives the ability to repent. But if you wait till you're busted, then there's very little hope. You're not repenting out of your own mistakes like me. I made a mistake. I did it myself. I didn't need anyone to course correct me. I corrected myself. I caught my mistake and I corrected my mistake. You have to be brought up on charges. You're not somebody who willfully wanted to correct their errors. So there's a big difference between me and you. I self-correct. I do it. So if I made a mistake, I reach out and I make the mistake and I say I did this and I want to make amends. And so I've done it many times, as I told you with Arizona and so on. And I made the mistake, like the ticket that got lost. They're like, we don't have anything. And I kept on demanding, and she cleared the shelves. And in between the shelves, I made her move the shelves, and I wouldn't go anywhere, and she found it. And she said, we would have never found this. No one moves these shelves. The ticket was on the ground. We didn't have any idea. And I paid the fine. And she was like, wow, you're just awesome. Truly, the girl said, praise me, praise me, praise me. She said, we would have never found this. We would have never known. And you stood here and I had to go through it and found. Ask the banker from the bank with an overdraft. Now, he stopped, but I knew, and I went back again and again and again, and then he went up to Minnesota, and they checked their archives, and they couldn't find anything, but I knew I still had, and now I have something sitting on my washer I need to do, but I went back again and again and again until he said, we checked all of our systems everywhere. We don't have anything for you. So I stopped. But I made him go all the way up to corporate in Minnesota and had them check TCFS. They were on Fullerton. Now it's some other bank. But I don't know why they pulled out of the Chicago market. They were in a supermarket as well. And they're out of Minnesota. So we did lose some banks. The banking market got less competitive. So that's one thing about the downturn. We lost Washington Mutual. We lost a lot of banks. And the banking market got less competitive. We need startup banks. As I put it, no startup banks. We need startup banks. And we need the banking market to get more competitive. So whether it's community banks, you can bring back the savings and loan model. Bring back the savings and loan model. Savings and loan model, I worked for Horizon Federal. If it wasn't for Charles Keating and the Keating Five, that model worked awesome. Awesome. But what did it primarily do? It was just a mortgage bank. That's all it did. It focused on residential mortgages, savings and loans. Savings and loans. And the loans were just mortgages. So it had a dedicated portfolio to just mortgages. It offered CDs and that, but it only did mortgages. No other form of lending. No diversification, just mortgages. But mortgages are different. Some people take 15. Some people get 30. Some people even take longer than that. Some people take 5 years, 10 years, depending. But all it did was mortgages and different durations, and that's where you get your diversification. And when people pay down the notes, you'll have a 30-year that only has 10 years remaining. That's a 10-year note. So you got everybody doing whatever they want in Chicago. So I don't get it. But the savings and loans can come back. It's a great model. We don't have anymore, but we should. It's not a bad model. It failed because of embezzlement. Embezzlement. The model works perfectly. So look at the savings and loan model. It works perfect. If you get in the right market, it's not for every market. But in the right markets, like mine, I worked at in Highland Park. And it went down and out of business. All of them closed down. But it's a great model and it's highly effective. So, and it's a model you can take to other places in the world. So you need different types of banks. There's the Commerce Bank. There's the Truly. So there's different types of banks. And so this is just one of a variety of banks. And they're very good at what they do. So I'm down here. Beautiful woman. Beautiful woman. Beyonce? Yeah, I think it's Beyonce. But Beyonce's a beautiful woman, I remember. So it's Beyonce. Okay. At the Drake Hotel. So she's a beautiful woman. And she sings the song about New York, New York. So who do we have here? A song about Chicago, Frank Sinatra. And who opened up a nightclub in here? Jilly. Jilly was Frank Sinatra's bodyguard. So I don't know if Frank Sinatra helped Jilly, but it was his name. And the nightclub opened here in Chicago. And Frank Sinatra sung the song about Chicago. Oh, Blue Eyes. And so I'm down here on the Premier Street. It's not only Michigan, it's Oak Street. And it's not a big area per se, but this is supposed to be the premier shopping district in all of the Midwest. Yeah, you have the Mall of America, Minnesota, and so on. Here's another Chicagoan doing whatever they want. It's a free-for-all. Everybody down here is insane. Everybody does what they want. There's no rule of law down here. It's chaos. It's a bunch of animals. This isn't civilization. Civilization means you're civilized. Civil people follow the rule of law to the T. That creates civilization. When you're breaking laws, you're considered uncouth, uncivilized. So there's a lack of civilization down here. They're not civilized. So it's a bunch of animals. Truly. What sets us up? Animals even follow rules, and that's where you get Darwinism. He studied it, and survival and so on, but he is studying the rules of nature. They follow a set of rules. So you say animals, no, they actually follow very preset rules. Truly, some animals don't eat other animals. Truly, they eat certain animals, don't eat other animals, and they'll be perfectly. You'll have sharks. They swim around and have these animals that swim around other fish. They never touch them. They will never harm them. Even if they're starving, they will never harm them. They have even set rules, but humans are sick people. They'll do whatever, anything. You'll indulge anything. And that makes you the greatest threat to the universe, to the multiverse, say, if you get out of here. Because as God sees you, you are just unbelievably disgusting. So George Bush did the thing, and he talked about stem cell research and doing it from aborted fetuses. And they said, nope, we don't want to promote abortion. So he said, no stem cells can be used from any aborted fetus. He put a moratorium. And he said, because we don't want to promote what? Abortions. So we don't want to get our stem cells through abortions. And so he said they cannot come from abortions. So you cannot use them in any way, shape, or form. That is it. It's a burnt offering. You cannot use them. So you cannot harvest anything from them. You must bury them and respect them. So there is no using them in any way, shape, or form. So I agreed with Bush. You can only get it through righteous sources. So again, so I don't know how many social workers I put out that work truly. And then let's see how many charities are down here, from the Salvation Army to, Pacific Gardens to many others. So you think there's more than enough? Yes, there is. So I don't get it. And I'm not even mentioning all the churches. I'm just talking about the pure outreach. Now, we went around the city of Chicago and we prayed for every homeless person. And this is Harvest. And we took the train down from Rolling Meadows. Truly, we took the train down and we walked around all Chicago. We gave them lunches. We gave them a book, and we showed them in the book. It had a list of all their resources, Everything to get them off the street. Truly, all the shelters, all the different systems. And then we prayed for each of them. And no, we didn't give them any money. No money. The book. They had to get off their ass. So I walked around all of Chicago, down miles and miles. We spent the whole day and giving them resources, and then I just continued. They stopped. They did it one day. I just continued and was doing it way before them. So I don't get it. So as a church, we went around making sure we can try to get every single one off the street. So now we're, how many years later? That was 2006. So we're almost 20 years later. What pieces of garbage that live down here. Truly garbage. We're going into 20 years later. And you think in multiple decades they'd have the solution and the problem would be behind us, right? But I guess this isn't civilization. So, again, and you can talk to Harvest. There's got to be people there. I don't know if they're still there. This was the singles group I was with. It was the 40-plus singles group. But, you know, they had a singles group, and I joined the singles group at the church. And so I was there because I was looking for a girlfriend. That was the point of the singles. Singles meeting each other and having the opportunity to see if they like and were interested in each other. And Harvest was endorsing that. That was part of it, for creating activities and the singles to do and meet each other. And then hopefully they find the opposite sex and they move forward. But I didn't find anyone. But the whole point is, I don't understand. So we gave them the resource book and we prayed for them. We gave them lunches. And, you know, there was one girl who was pregnant and I was going to give a phone card to in that. But the guy who was leading the group told me no. But it was just a card for the phone. But later, working with another girl who was a black lady, talking how they were trading these things to buy alcohol and drugs and do other illegal endeavors. So we weren't doing that, like grocery cards and that. They were trading it. And then I showed you on the link system. They were taking their link card and selling it for money, and then from that getting drugs. And so why isn't there an identification on the link card? Why isn't there a picture on the link card? Why isn't there biometric ID? A PIN doesn't do shit. It has to be a biometric identification. So the only one that can use the link card is them. Just like Medicare and that. So you don't get health insurance fraud. There has to be biometric identification. So the only one that can use the benefit is you. So I would assume it says, don't walk. So a biometric identification on HSAs, they need to move to it. Banks already require thumbprints. So that's a biometric identification. It's already 100% legal. So are they in to end it, or are they in to continue on with the crimes? Truly, are they in to end the crimes, or is it just hypocrites? They don't want to truly end it. They just want it to go on. So they will ignore the solutions and allow the wickedness to continue. And then you have to burn. So I don't understand why they're not going to biometric IDs, whether it's the Metro Pass or other things, so people can't steal it. And if they can't use your biometric information, truly, then they won't rob you. There's no reason to mug you, right? With credit cards and all that. And if they can't use the resources that they steal from you, then you won't get the Batman scenario where they're in the alley and they killed the husband and wife, or me growing up in a taxi cab at 5 years old, the guy robbing us because he can just steal the cash. And you can't track the cash. That's why they have to have scanners. And when the bill comes in, it goes through a scanner. Even a taxi cab, they take cash, it goes through a scanner and records the bill. So if somebody steals it from you, it goes out as a bolo. And they automatically are looking for the bill getting scanned into the system. So they need to protect all these stores. All they have to do is scan their bills, and it goes into a system, and the system can be done by the Federal Reserve. It goes into the Fed system. So every individual has a Social Security number. And when they get bills, they just scan them. The ATM at the bank gives you bills and you get a number. And then when it comes out and you get change, those bills are recorded going to you. From the store to you. So, tracking the money. So the money is always tracked. You know, everybody put that thing on, you know, something George on bills, and they would write down, there's a whole internet site so they can see where the money went, and it was a fun game, and they put it, but that site is what I'm talking about. And they set it up through the Federal Reserve, and the bills are recorded. You get the bill and you scan it. The phone has an imaging system, and you just image the currency. And it goes into the Fed system, and the Fed system knows when you don't have the bill anymore. Because when somebody else gets it, they scan it in. And it shows the bill going from you to them. And if it was stolen, all you have to do is report it. Now you're saying, well, if they kill you, but no, that's not true. All they have to do is look in the Fed system and see what bills you had. Because they haven't been grown up, so they're in limbo. So they know from the bank what bills were given to you, what bills you should have had on you in the Fed system. And so if they kill you, they can't use the money anyways. They can't use the money. And so you have Zilla and all that can track the transfer of money. So if you're giving somebody currency, physical currency, Zilla has it where you transfer the serial numbers to them. Transfer the serial numbers to them. I'm giving you blank, 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 and you legally transfer it to them. So you're trying to track the bill through the exchanges. But this is anti-terrorism, right? Because what do? They don't want the bills to be tracked. Now the bills are tracked. What are criminals going to do? That every dollar they touch, so now they're going to have to do a barter system. But at least we're at a barter system and we're moving the currency out of it, so they'll have to find some other alternative, and all you're doing is trying to make it highly difficult for them to operate. That's it. So all you're doing is raising the stakes. And when you do that, it's more than likely they're going to be caught. See, as you raise the stakes, it's easier to catch them. And so all you're doing is raising the standards, making it more and more difficult, so you're shrinking the criminal population, truly. And then they're less likely to want to be criminals because it's very hard to have any benefit. So people aren't going to mug you, aren't going to stick you up, because they can't use your credit card because it's a biometric system. And so cutting off your hand and that. No, the sensors can tell if it's a pulse in that, thermal, and that. So, and then you can tell if it's over somebody else's hand or not, because that'll interfere with the thermal. So it's an impairment, and the system can see the impairment. So again, it can tell if it's coming from flesh or not, live flesh. So, and then you have the cortisol levels, and the skin secretes cortisol and so on, truly. And so you can see the pulse on the finger. If somebody's under stress, the pulse will be, when the infrared, they'll see the beats per minute. And you can see the beats per minute when it's doing the biometric scan of your hand and that, and it's looking at the beats per minute. And your beats per minute will be elevated. And it knows you're under duress. So again, the systems can get better. It can hear it in your voice. It can see it in your pulse. It can see it getting secreted in your skin. So there's a lot of ways to determine that somebody is under, because people robbing people and having them go to the ATM, withdraw money, and then going back. Well, hence, shouldn't there be some kind of, way to press a help button on the ATM? Some kind of panic button? So, again, if they're under duress, so a silent alarm, not an alarm that goes off, but a silent alarm. So, and people that have accounts will know it's in there, but the whole thing is, it'll scare the shit out of them because they won't want you going to an ATM, and they're afraid that you'll do this and that. So it raises the stakes. And so all you're doing is trying to put a lot of loops, like estate planning. That's what we learn. We put more and more loops or more and more walls up that they have to go over, making it more and more difficult for them to sue you. And why? Because we want to make sure the people that sue you actually have a legitimate claim, because the frivolous lawsuits won't go anywhere. So making sure, and so we set up the trust and everything else to prevent frivolous lawsuits. That's why they were designed. They weren't designed to scam people out of their money. They were designed for all the ambulance chasers and that, for all the frivolous lawsuits, making sure they had to jump through these high standards to get money from you. So it was to prevent frivolous lawsuits, and that's why they were created. People would do these slip and fall things, and you lose your building. And that. Truly, scam artists were slipping and falling and other things, and so these were set up to prevent you from losing things from people trying to pull scams on you. And so there's a lot of it. Like I told you about the case at Disney World. It was a brutal rape. The girl was brutally beaten. But who did it? Her boyfriend. And private detectives hired by Disney found out they were going to pay her out unbelievable millions. I mean, they were going to be unbelievably rich. And then they found out, the detectives looked into it and found out that it was all staged. But that's why I give you the different things with the rape kit. Even if they beat the shit out of them and so on, there's ways to tell that it was fake, that it wasn't the truth. And Disney will be all for it. Truly, you go tell them, you pull up that suit, and they'll be all for it, because that was very bad. And if that detective didn't unearth it, that would have been all over the news. It would have been all over the place. But instead, it just made a minor story in the paper about them getting scammed. Truly, didn't make any national, didn't make anything, because it was all a fraud. But if they went through with the settlement, it would have been all over. Disney would have, because I guess he really beat her bad. I mean, she took the beating. I mean, a substantial beating. And so, but the worse he beat her, the more money they were going to get in the settlement. The worse he beat her, the more money they were going to be eligible for in the settlement. And so she knew that, and she took an incredible beating. It was supposed to be an extremely bloody rape. But it was all a scam. So you say, how far will people go? And this is why I don't trust people. I've seen them go. And then I studied, people's self-inflicting wounds, like shooting themselves in the military and doing things. And it's true. They used to frag their lieutenants in Vietnam. And this is why you think going into the military and getting people that are bad people and putting them in the military, we've had a lot of problems in the military because we chose to put bad people in the military. That's why I promote ROTC and getting these kids to train from high school and going through and watching them and watching their development and them entering the military. And that's why I talk about military schools and so on. Because this thing about bad people going in the military and do bad things has happened. And so we get people in the military that, like shooters at the one camp and everything, they sign up, they enlist, and ROTC and that, and military academies and that. And so that's where they should be pulling from. And so they should be endorsing it, promoting it, and pulling from there. And that means we get better military troops. Troops that are trained year in, year out, through high school, into college, through college. And you can join ROTC in college. It's just you're in a start at a, more beginner level. And if you've had more development, you'll start at like a private second class instead of a private first class. Or a private, I don't know if there's a private third class, fourth class. And if they need, they can expand the classes. And so they can add some more. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So everybody starts as a private, but you start at a different level of private based on experience. So you get more pay. So if you went to ROTC in high school, or you started in a military academy and you were in elementary school in a military academy, then you went to a military academy in high school and you were part of ROTC, and then you continued into college, and so you went to West Point or something, then you move into officer. So we can do this. Even law enforcement can promote that, and they can have their own form, and firefighters their own form of ROTC. So you get in a track and you're, in this ROTC program for law enforcement, ROTC for firefighters. And so you can join in high school and take it again in college, and you start at a higher pay. If you join in college, you start at a lower pay. But it's going to be very hard for people to change jobs. And that's what I want. People making the right path and staying down the path. It's going to be very hard in the future to change careers. So this is why you're supposed to figure things out. And when you get into a path, you're more going to be locked in that path, but you're already proficient. And so you're going to be successful in that path to some degree. There'll be different levels of success, but you'll have less career changers. And so, because the standards have raised, like London School of Economics, Ken, this black gentleman who I was friends with, took martial arts, they didn't take any career changers. You had to start in finance and be in finance your whole life. You couldn't have changed over like me. I couldn't get accepted into the graduate program at London School of Economics because I changed from hospitality to finance. And so they wouldn't accept me because I'm not a purebred. So they only want purebreds, people that began in it and stayed in it, people that have dedicated their whole life to economics. And truly, economics, finance, and they only take those people. So they want they consider the cream of the crop. So it's going to be harder in the future to change careers. And how? Because it's going to get that much more competitive. And if you change career, you're going to be stuck below them, and you're going to have unbelievably hard work. It's not like you can't, but to get traction going upward is going to be very difficult. So that's the way it should be in the NFL and that. I mean, if you got people that are changing over and they're all of a sudden beating you, then they're not training them correctly. Truly, they're not training them correctly. Like, there shouldn't be any Deion Sanders crossing over and but he basically washed out of baseball. So did Michael Jordan wash out of baseball. So did Tim Tebow wash out of baseball. They tried, but they really didn't cut it. Deion played he was the only one that played at the major leagues, and he wasn't that good. So Kenny Lofton played both college basketball and baseball, but he had to choose. And so he chose baseball, and he gave up basketball. So the competition moving to the next level, you're not going to be a multi-sporter. But the competition should be so great that it's impossible for you to do that. And if the league isn't strong, then you have all these people that can do. Like Mongo Michael, he made it as a scab player. Well, that shows you that competition isn't good enough. They're not developing people correctly. Because if they are, you're not going to make it. Like my friend Todd, he tried to cross over. He made it to Green Bay for a little bit, but washed out. So you're not in a, if things are going right, you're not going to have people that cross over. It's going to be unbelievably difficult for people to make any type of movement. And so, but that's a very good competitive world. That means when people get in tracks, they dedicate their life. That's how it's in Japan. Do you think people think no, because it's so highly competitive, unbelievably competitive, like sushi chefs and that you can't cross over. But no one can cross over into your profession either. And so it's so unbelievably competitive. And naturally, it creates natural monopolies for people. Natural monopolies. So, if it's done right, you're not going to have the ability to move. You're going to be locked into a path. But you chose that path. And so, that's why in high school and then by college, you're pretty much on a course selection. And once you choose after college in Japan, there's really no changing your path. It's just unbelievably competitive. So people are in that, but by that time, you should know where you want to be. That's why I promote internships for high school, internships for college. That's why I talk about working and figuring it out, and young people should work. That's the problem, is young people don't work. And so when they get out there, like they get out of college and they've never had a job. Jen had internships in college. She was MIS major, then she had her internships. By the time she got out of college, she knew exactly what she was going to do. And now she stayed in the field. Now she works for a pharmaceutical company, but she's still in the same field. It's doing management information systems within the pharmaceutical company. So when I say you can't change fields, she was with a consulting firm, but there's real estate divisions. Starbucks has its own real estate division. Many companies have their own real estate, their own management information systems, and so on. So she was in consulting. She moved into a pharmacy company, but she does the exact same thing for the pharmacy company as she did for the consulting firm, because they had their own in-house division. It's just like lawyers. There's corporate attorneys. They have their own in-house counsel, and sometimes they use out-of-house counsel. And so, then sometimes they don't. And so they have in-house counsel. So lawyers can cross over from working from a firm and can go work for Guardian. They have their in-house estate planners. John